Good evening, folks. It's the 22nd of July 2025, and this is on the Irish Daily Mail and some of the articles in it. It's mainly about the government's big plans, etc. I was just talking to somebody there on the phone that supports me and made the point that it is hard to believe that the American government was taxing its people and sending the money to Germany, where the Germans were using it to bring in migrants into Germany. That was US aid. That was part of US aid. Isn't that unbelievable stuff? It's also hard to believe that I have uncovered it, and Friedrich Merz, the Chancellor of Germany, has said it to Dick Robertson of the BBC, that there is still, and hasn't been ever, any laws to stop human trafficking into Germany. There's nothing stopping people smugglers, child traffickers bringing children into Germany, and there's no law to stop them. To my way of thinking, if we pick a country, we'll say it's hard to just name anywhere, but we'll say it's Somalia, South Africa, or maybe Moldova. Take your pick. If kidnappers were to kidnap a girl from her parents while she's out playing, a girl of 10 years of age, and kidnap that child and take her to Germany, and her poor parents are looking for her, and don't forget the absolute heartbreak was over Madeleine McCann's kidnap. But according to German law, as I see it, there's nothing can be done with those kidnappers. They cannot take the kidnapped kids off those human smugglers, and they cannot prosecute them or jail them. Is that not a very, very perverse situation? Anyway, no doubt somebody will take issue. Now, what we're dealing with here is the government's plan. The government has brought out a plan, 275 billion for infrastructure investment. Excuse me, hands, I'm doing work, so my hands are dirty. So this is it here. Now, they have brought it out for energy, infrastructure, tourism, town and country planning. It used to be the government used to actually hire contractors to do the work. The councils would build houses, build work. Now they have a thing called public-private partnership. They make the law that the consumer has to pay, a private enterprise then builds it. So, for example, in a lot of medical centres, the person can build the place, let it back to the Department of Health, and get rent forevermore. Long ago, the government would build that. Government used to build Garda stations through the Office of Public Works. I think they still actually do that. But long ago, it wasn't just Garda stations, it was public buildings, housing and everything for people. Now they don't seem to be doing that anymore. So what they do is they give you a premium on your windmill output and charge it to the bills, with the result is we have ever increasing energy poverty in Europe and in Ireland. Now, I want to read this to you here. It's by Brian McMahon, the political correspondent for the Irish Daily Mail. Judicial reviews are damaging the future, warns the Taoiseach. The Taoiseach has warned, that's the Prime Minister, the Taoiseach, sorry, I got a call there and I had to refuse it. The Taoiseach has warned that unnecessary judicial reviews are damaging future generations, as the government yesterday launched a multi-billion national development plan. The coalition pledged to fix the deficit in Ireland's public infrastructure, particularly in energy and water, windmills and solar power that do nothing at all. They have to be backed up 100% by standard generation. So we are talking about my prophecy coming true. A unit of electricity will soon be $2.49 to buy, and that means that the public will starve. And do you know what? The devil mend them. I hope they do, because they voted for these creeps. Now, so there's an insert here. The government was left red-faced yesterday after its brochure pledging 275 billion in spending featured on Northern Ireland railway train instead of an Éireann Road Éireann model. Hopefully the NPD is still on the right track. They put the wrong train on it. I wouldn't worry about that too much. Now, which is hampering housing delivery. So they're talking here about the deficit hampering housing delivery. The revised National Development Plan. Wouldn't you think the first thing to do would be finish the Children's Hospital? Wouldn't you think that'd be the first thing to do? The revised National Development Plan, that requires a strategic environmental assessment. Once it moves from a budget to an actual plan, they'll do none of that. That's EU law, will be broken 100%. Development Plan commits to spending 102 billion before next year and 2030. Between next year and 2030. Okay, now, an increase, my glasses are all oiled up, and that's the problem I have. An increase of 23.9 billion on the previous iteration. Big word again, iteration. The ESB and EirGrid will be given 3.5 billion, so they're going to go ahead with the North-South interconnector to enhance energy infrastructure, while Uisce Éireann will be given 2 billion to help deliver an additional 300,000 homes up to 2030. So it's not that they're giving it to these people. They're giving the ESB 3.5 billion. So where is the fossil fuel for this energy going to come from? I thought we were to stop burning fossil fuel. According to the plan, they also want to give it to Uisce Éireann. So if they have all this money to Uisce Éireann, why were they trying to introduce a water tax, a water charge? If they're awash with money, as Joe Finnegan said about Shannonside Northern Sound. The investment will be funded by the Apple tax windfall of 14 billion. And I'm told that money is lodged in New York and may never be paid. Proceeds from state shares in AIB and the Infrastructure, Climate and Nature Fund. So where is that? Where did that come from? Now, one of the things I note about that, about this AIB, the AIB is we must never have any funds. It must be very important in future that any government which would be on my side would make sure no money is ever saved. You cannot have money in a democracy like Ireland. If you save money, and you're prudent, the people will elect a crowd of gougers that will spend it. And that has to stop. There must be no money ever for them to spend. You tax what they need on a day-to-day basis. We will send a very clear signal to the investment community that infrastructure commitments is one for the long run, Michael Martin said. So he's relying on the investment community. Taoiseach Simon Harris said, I think the big prize today for the Irish economy is Simon Harris, is in trying to provide certainty to those who wish to invest in this country. Well, those who wish to invest should realise it's only a stroke of the European Court of Justice to pull down every single thing they built. Look at SCA Directive 2001/42 EC, Article 3.2. There has to be a strategic environmental assessment with public participation on every bit of this, and there's zilch. There is nothing. So you invest, you lose all. Under the plan, Ireland's transport network will be given 24 billion to extend routes and greenways and support the electrification of public transport fleets. Housing is set at 36 billion, which mostly does not include water infrastructure. This is some amount of millions. They're printing it. That's why when you go down to the shop, you're paying 3 times for a thing now you were a year ago in some cases. When it was put to Mr. Martin, the funding for housing, the funding for 5.8 billion a year over 5 years was not much more than before. He said it did not include water and energy infrastructure or private investment. Mr. Martin said the largest projects has already been baked into the plan, such as Metrolink and the Dublin drainage system, and a major infrastructure plan to pump water from Shannon to the Midlands to Dublin. Imagine that. That requires an SCA too. There'll be some opposition to that. But the point is, why don't they pick one good, genuine plan, comply with the law and do it? They have done nothing. They're in now since November. They've done nothing. What can they do? When you think the first thing you do is build a children's hospital. However, Mr. Martin warned members of the public against taking judicial reviews, that's me, against taking judicial reviews against large-scale infrastructure projects. He has no right in that at all. The treaties on the functioning of the EU gives me the right to take judicial reviews on the SCA, the EIA, the habitats and the other ones. So he wants to ignore all the environmental protection directives of the European Union. Ignore them. Which often holds them up for protracted periods of time, he said. We would appeal to people by all means. How appeal? How can he appeal to me when he breaks the law? Appealing to me and the people I'm working for. We would appeal to people by all means use the planning process at local authority level. Well, many of the planning process, and it shows you his ignorance, are SIDs, Strategic Infrastructure Development. They never go near the local authority. But some of them do. So use it at local authority level, at the Board Planola level, but really, really reflect on judicial reviews for projects. When we know that the council, Cavan County Council people who make the planning decisions, 2 women, 10 years ago told me they never heard of European law, got no training in it or anything else. Didn't understand any of the directions, hadn't a clue what I was talking about. Right? But don't take a judicial review. We've had people had to leave Board Planola over conflicts of interest and types of corruption. Oh no, I know, deal with it now, but don't go for a judicial review. Don't go for a judicial review. The judicial review is built into European law. Why doesn't he try and take it out and see how he gets on? We are damaging society and we are damaging future generations by the extraordinary delays. We're damaging the migrants coming in from Botswana, Somalia, everywhere else. Timbuktu. That's the future he has. He has no interest in our future and future generations. What about the children that are denied a children's hospital proper because of he couldn't build it? Why doesn't he answer that question? We are damaging societies and we're damaging the future generations by the extraordinary delays that people are experiencing in terms of the courts now becoming a platform for resolving planning issues. Well, when the Board Planola won't do it, a lot of the applications of the courts have been successful. A lot of them have been successful. I actually won one myself when I insisted that the whole wind farm be included in the environmental impact assessment, and won. And got paid $2,200 back. So he's telling me, oh, don't do that. Who the hell does he think he is? I understand that the Constitution is there. Do you? Does he understand that we held referendums giving the European Court of Justice the right to dictate on environmental matters? Democracy is there. No, it is not. When you get the leader of a country asking people not to exercise their democratic right. But it's a serious issue in terms of the major water projects that are basically providing water for the population. Why doesn't he tell the migrants to stay away from the migrant appeals courts? It said in the paper the other day the whole court system is bogged down with migrants who are stuck in the courts that aren't here any more than a few months. Why do they count more than me? Well, wastewater treatment, that's cleaning water to clean up estuaries and rivers. There's nothing stopping the local authorities from properly policing, organising and having wastewater treatment. Did they ever apply to do it? Did they ever apply to government to clean it? In the pollution in Lough Sheelin, it was Cavan County Council was dumping sewage into it, and were doing it up to a few years ago. They're still dumping raw sewage into the sea. And yet he's blaming me for it. Is it really in the public interest that, notwithstanding your own personal or particular position on it, to delay it for so long? 2 wind farm victims have been given over €2 million in compensation for nuisance in the last few months. So it is in their interest. He insisted they be built without the proper assessment on the effect of noise. They were built and now you have them being closed down. Derry Bryan Wind Farm was hailed by him and his party and the Fine Gael party. Now it has to be pulled down because they didn't comply with the law. They killed 50,000 trout. He added, we have platforms in the Planning Act. My glasses dirty. We have reforms in the Planning Act. I didn't get to read them, but they cannot take out the right of the people where there is a European law involved. They may be able to resolve a house building or a development or building a wall, but they cannot take, once there's an EIA, an appropriate assessment under the Habitats Directive or Pollution Control or the SCA, you're fully entitled to go to the court. Not only that, you're entitled to have only pay for your own expenses. Right? So that's what he wants us to give up. I think people generally need to focus on the common good. What's good about your wind farms? They're a scam. They're a scam. 1/4 of all the people in the country who have ESB bills cannot pay them, cannot pay their electricity bill. A scam. It doesn't save anything, I've proven that. And he won't do the SCA because it'd prove it's a scam. He's lining the pockets of the industry that's looking after him. People generally need to focus on the common good here in terms of measuring energy and water. Yeah, measure it under the appropriate law. An engineering report under the SCA directive prove it works, and you can't. The coalition also warned that 1.5 billion worth of VAT, tax and USC, they were to take away the USC, the Universal Social Charge. It's still here. After in 2009 it was brought in. It's still here, 16 years later. And USC cuts are at risk in the budget if even 10% tariff from the US hits. I blame Trump. He's not tariffing them half enough because they're going to waste it. They're not going to spend it on anything sensible. There'll be bicycle sheds all over the place, and this time instead of costing a million, they'll cost 5 million. He took no responsibility. He penalised nobody for these debacles. Despite Mr. Harris earlier this month saying that his 10% tariffs are now the working expectation. That's a separate matter. What's that to do with this? This is about infrastructure. Finance Minister Paschal Donohoe yesterday confirmed that the summary economic statement upon which the broad parameters of the budget are passed was predicted on a no-tariff scenario emerging as we approach the budget. This is appealing. What is it to do with me or the people who get on to me building their stupid wind turbines and their stupid solar farms? And I have to decide on how to look up and read the application and find fault and advise on a judicial review. What's that to do with the tariffs? Go over and negotiate them yourselves. You're getting 70,000 for a group in Kerry for promoting some kind of cultural thing of US aid. That day is gone. We'll assess the budget day package to decide whether it's available, Mr. Donohoe said, pressing by the Irish Daily Mail on whether this meant that the tax package of 1.5 billion was at risk. Mr. Donohoe, now this is Donohoe, said, at no point when we have published an economic statement before have we given an indication of specific decisions that are going to be made. Nobody gives a damn about him. He's only waffling anyway, the whole Paschal Donohoe. Pressed again, he said there are things that could happen that would affect where the country stands, and we will have we'll have to incorporate that. So it says here, Irish Water has its billions, so now it's time to deliver. So why was there going to be a water charge? What about the household charge on the councils every year? What about the property tax? Why don't they cut it away if they've all these billions? Now go on. Now, of course, it was in the paper during the week. There's that many asylum seekers in the courts availing of free legal aid. There's nothing for Irish people who might want free legal aid to sort out some family matter or some property matter, or maybe the unfortunate people going through divorces and separations and all this, all gone. And some of those people voted for Labour, Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin. Now, a lot of them didn't vote at all. And this is what happens when you refrain from doing your duty and voting out these creeps. I just see an article here. Partial recovery of stolen money. The National Treasury Management Agency has recovered 1.5 million of the 5 million it lost to scammers earlier this month. Scammers took the idiots for a ride. The Irish Daily Mail revealed 2 weeks ago that the agency, which manages billions of euro in taxpayers' money, has been a victim of a voice phishing attack on the Oireachtas Finance Committee. At the Oireachtas Finance Committee yesterday, NAMA Chief Frank O'Connor explained that a fraudster managed to obtain information allowing them to pose as a representative from a company that was allegedly receiving funding from the Ireland Strategic Investment Fund, and was due to make a second drawdown. Mr. O'Connor admitted that he wouldn't describe the scam used to steal 5 million from the organisation as sophisticated. It definitely wasn't sophisticated. You wouldn't need to be very sophisticated to scam Irish government agencies. In fact, you wouldn't need to bother. Just do it, and that's all. I wouldn't put sophistication on it, he said in response to questioning from Sinn Féin's Pierce Doherty. I'd let other people who are experts on it to be more. I'd let other people who are experts in it to say sophisticated. Mr. O'Connor said that the initial indications show that when the money was received by the fraudsters, the process of moving it began very quickly. We leave that at that. Okay? We leave that at 22 minutes. That's a long enough video. Do you see what they're trying to tell us? We shouldn't use our rights on the environment. They're not his rights to plead on at all. He canvassed for membership of the EU. I supported it on the basis that these planning laws were there and these rights to take judicial reviews. He now wants us not to do it because he says his plan is great. And a crowd of fraudsters can take 5 million off them and they don't even see it.